stacking surfer. I think I'm your best friend. Balances in your bank and stack. What's up, everybody? Stacking Surfer here. Glad that you are here with me today. I have a great guest for us that we're going to have on in just a second here. So anyway, as we're getting started, I just want to do a quick reminder for you guys. Every time we get to a new 100 thumbs up, we're going to do a giveaway of gold backs today. So you guys have a chance to win some gold backs. And I anticipate this is going to be a really good show. We are going to be talking about silver and gold. We'll hit a little bit about Bitcoin, what's going on in the market. And we're also going to be talking about how to become your own bank. So as we get started here, I'm going to bring Andy on right now, and we're going to go ahead and ask Andy a few questions here. So first off, Andy, thank you for coming. For those of you that don't know Andy Schectman, he is the CEO of Miles Franklin. And his company is a great place to pick up precious metals from. I've had the pleasure of doing that myself, and his company has only treated us really well. So we'll talk a little bit about Andy's company in the middle of the show today as well. But Andy, how are you? How are things going in the market today? Are you getting phone calls from people? Are people having any concerns about the price action recently, or is it really not that bad for most people?
I think it's not that bad. I'm sure there are people that are concerned and bummed out by it. It's better than the alternative. I think that this administration will be much better for the country, but it will ultimately be very good for gold too. Look, when Trump won in 2016, gold sold off hard for a few weeks until mid-December. But following that, there was a huge gold rally through much of 2017. You have a situation where there's been massive short positions by the commercial banks across the board in gold and silver that have been literally bleeding them dry for the better part of the last year. And this was an opportunity on the Trump euphoria to push the price down a little bit to get the algorithms to start selling, which then triggered a pretty large sell-off. And what you're seeing is the managed money that was very long has sold a large portion of that position, which means the commercial banks go the opposite direction. Not only are they covering their shorts, they're taking the longs on the other end. This is to be expected. I was wondering how these banks would ever get out of these short positions, and I think this is an opportunity for them to do that. But in terms of, where this is ultimately going, I think nothing has changed at all. In fact, look, Trump is a proponent of very low interest rates. I mean, he'd like negative interest rates if he could. During his last tenure, he was calling the Fed boneheads for not implementing zero or even negative interest rates. And so when you talk about a situation of lower interest rates and a weaker dollar, that's bad for the purchasing power of the currency. Certainly that's good for the banks, that's good for Wall Street, but it's also very, very, very inflationary. What happens is that lately, as the front end of the market, the bond market, the yield, the rates have been pushed down, the back end's going up commensurate, if not more. In fact, they've lowered the front end by 75 basis points, and the back end is up over 80 basis points over that same period of time. In other words, the 10-year treasury, which is the most important treasury. It's the one that is tied to the mortgages. It's tied to the credit cards, to the auto loans. It's tied to leases, commercial leases in terms of real estate. So yeah, I think that this was to be expected, and it shouldn't shock people. And to see it move in the direction that it is going, when you see the stock market and cryptocurrencies taking off the way that they have, again, it's only exacerbating this correction, which is really something that the big commercial banks, I think, are welcoming. Now, at the same time, where this becomes kind of dicey is that you have half of the world looking at these depressed prices as an opportunity to load up on gold and silver at subsidized prices, that being the central banks and the BRICS nations. So yeah, this is the market exhaling and irrational exuberance, if you will, because while this will be good for the country on many levels, It doesn't change the fact that even if you had a guy like Elon Musk come in and trim all the fat, all of it, and we get into a much more streamlined situation with the government, the Congressional Budget Office, which is a nonpartisan group out of Washington, maybe the last nonpartisan group, has come out and said that by 2031, in just 4 years, 100% of tax revenue goes just to pay the interest on the debt and the mandatory entitlements like Social Security and Medicare. And how do you retain your status as the supreme authority in the world, if you will, in terms of militarily and in terms of financially, when you're borrowing things like military spending, which is discretional? Everything that is discretional would need to be borrowed. Everything other than the mandatory payments for maintaining the interest on the debt and the entitlements like Social Security and Medicare. So it's a situation that we've gotten so far down the rabbit hole. We are so indebted by reigniting the inflation engine, by dropping rates. Again, we're not learning from our mistakes, and we're just papering over the same problem. So I don't look, I'm very optimistic, at least in terms of what it means for the country to go back to some form of sanity from a standpoint of culturally. But in terms of financially, no, I think that gold and silver will ultimately, as that debt burden gets worse and worse and worse, and we see this debt bubble pop, which I think it will. I mean, you look at the bank in Lindsay, Oklahoma, which I think was a test case that failed, and all of the uninsured deposits were bailed in. No one's talking about this. Where the hell is the media talking about this? It's crazy how it's gotten no attention, and yet all they had in little podunk flyover country Oklahoma was 7 million in uninsured assets, not the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions that Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank had with Hollywood money like Oprah and tech startup companies and whatnot that were bailed out.
One of the things I did want to ask you about a little bit here too is when you're looking at what the BRICS could potentially do, when you're looking at the bond market and the problems we have there, and you're looking at the banks that are out there, and a lot of them have bond problems, a lot of them have mortgage-backed security problems right now too. One of the things I wanted to hit a little bit about today is if you've got any suggestions on how we might become our own bank to a degree. How do we try to secure ourselves a little bit more here? Is it advisable to have money in the market? Is it advisable to, to bring gold and silver into your house and to store it properly? What are the things that you're advising some of your friends and family around, situations like now? How would you help someone be able to take control of themselves, their wealth a little bit more? In that term, be your own bank. What does that mean to you?
So being your own bank, in my opinion, is not as crazy as it sounds. I think that this is the time to do things like that. Unconventional times certainly call for unconventional actions. If I were going to be in any bank that wasn't, I'd stay out of the regional banks. A credit union is probably better than the large commercial banks. They are not as risky as the big banks are, but they're not immune to all the problems either. So, leaving enough in the bank to pay your monthly expenses and whatnot, sure. But any other cash, I think you'd do a whole lot better riding the Trump wave, if you will, the Trump train, or being your own bank and removing counterparty risk that I just have a hard time believing won't rear its head probably very soon. My biggest fear of all of this is it's kind of like a psyop, like a setup, and they want to blow up the system and blame things like, free market capitalism and Trump, of course, and all of his policies for blowing everything up. And, I don't think people understand just how screwed up the books really are, and the lying that we get out of the Bureau of Labor Statistics on unemployment and on inflation and just how bad it truly is. Most people have no idea. But if you were, like, for example, the liquidity in the system, the BTFP, the Bank Term Funding Program, expired just a couple of days ago. The reverse repo market is down to almost zero. The velocity in money is very slow right now, and the liquidity is bad. And so when you talk about banks in urgent need of liquidity, they have been able to draw upon the reverse overnight repo market. They have been able to go and use things like the discount window or the BTFP. All of these things are down to the lowest levels. BTFP is gone. The overnight lending window is very, very low, and then horrible terms that they don't want to use them. So there's problems in the system, and as rates on the 10-year go higher, that's going to create massive problems as these commercial loans and leases come due this year and next, which then cripple the banks and can just like that, set that daisy chain off in the banking system. So we're not out of the woods, but we should be optimistic. I'm sick and tired of being, Joey Buzzkill. I am. I mean, it gets old, right? But I guess if the foo should swear it, right? So you know what I'm saying? I just think that it's foolish to become concerned and panic-stricken about what's happened right now. This is exactly what happened in 2016, and everything turned right back around, and gold started to march much higher. So just stay true to your beliefs and your convictions. We haven't seen anything that's going to change ultimately the fate of the dollar. But there might be some profits on the table in the stock market and in the crypto market. And I don't think there's anything wrong with riding this wave for as long as you can. Just be careful.
I agree, Andy. I think right now is a good time for people to pick up gold and silver if you haven't bought any recently. For those of you that have maybe been buying on the way up, I don't think this is a time to just go and unload everything. I still think that the principles are still there, the risks are still there in the market, and if anything, I think we're having some good opportunities to pick up. In trading in general or buying things, you want to buy low, you want to sell high, but the human condition always tells us to do the opposite, right? The fear comes in.
That's the human emotion part. That's why there's that whole theory of investing called wave theory, and that's why so few people ever succeed, because they let their emotions drive their decisions rather than logic and mathematics and economics, and it's hard to not be emotional, right? I mean, it's scary when you got kids and you're raising a family and shit, I just lost all my money, or I mean, I could lose it. What do I do? And am I missing out? You get FOMO, and then people jump in without even knowing why they jumped in, just because they got FOMO. They didn't do their research. Very dangerous. So, but that's how people get wiped out. And you see people jump into the crypto market, maybe because they feel FOMO, they haven't researched it, they didn't figure it out, and that's very dangerous. Crypto is not something that you should just jump into without at least getting some help from someone who's been down that road before, teaching you how to properly handle it, how to properly purchase it, how to properly store it, etc. So there are a lot of pitfalls out there right now, but there are also opportunities. But materially, yeah, the emotions will drive this market in many directions. And I don't believe that we are hoping spring eternal right now. I think that there's a lot of people pushing back against what President-elect Trump is planning on doing, and I'm fearful that they're setting him up to blow up the whole system so that he and everything that this administration stands for will be blamed, and that's my biggest concern of all. Hope I'm wrong.
One question that's coming in here, and I think it's one that we've addressed a few times, but it seems to still stick around a little bit, is when people are looking at buying gold and silver and taking the physical metal, there's this term that people will use called coin of the realm. Another way of just talking about it is buying a sovereign coin for your country, something that's minted inside the country. You've got a couple different camps out there. Some people believe you need to buy the cheapest, least expensive silver. They may tend to go for more bars. You've got other people that say you need something that's highly divisible, so they go after the junk and constitutional silver. And then you've got like another camp that says, no, it really needs to be silver rounds or silver, coins. And when you get into the difference between silver coins and rounds, you can have a $3 to $6 spread between a silver buffalo and, say, a silver eagle. And I think a lot of people are trying to figure out, is it really worth buying silver eagles and paying that extra premium?
Gold and silver coins, sovereign coins, as legal tender for all debts, public and private, including your property taxes. Some specifically say American made. 21 or 22 states have this in front of their legislatures right now. Yeah, I think buying American coins is worth it. During the pandemic, it wasn't. Premiums were too high. I'm one of 27 U.S. Mint authorized resellers. The Mint has been very centered to my existence in the precious metals world, and I'm very thankful for my relationship with them. But for 4 years, I told everyone, don't buy it. 3 years, too expensive. They aren't now. And so if I had my choice, yeah, I buy American made, whether it be pre-65 junk silver, Morgan and Peace silver dollars, silver eagles, pre-33 gold numismatics, gold eagles, gold buffaloes. I think you buy American made, and there's just, I think, an added potential value there, maybe even a really big value down the road. So while there is no right or wrong answer, I like that the best. Now, when we talk about silver buffaloes, a lot of people think that's made by the U.S. Mint. It's not. Gold buffaloes are. Silver buffaloes are made by refineries, and I would argue they do that specifically because a lot of people think they're buying U.S. Mint coins. They're not. They're generic rounds that are made by a sovereign mint, or made by a private mint, those that make like the 100-ounce bars and whatnot.
I did want to do a shout out to Tiger here. He's left a super chat for us, and also a question for you, Andy. Andy, what about the foreign gold that President Kennedy put into the same category as pre-33? Are you familiar with that?
I don't know what he's talking about. I mean, the only thing that I could think of would be like British sovereigns, Swiss 20 francs, French 20 francs. I think that's probably what he's talking about, because those coins are from that time period. But that isn't technically right if that's what he's talking about, because, executive order up here that talks about pre-33 coins, United States minted. And this is something, if that's what he's talking about, I don't know, he can maybe chime in, but there are a lot of companies that are full of shit that will tell you that the British sovereign that you bought from 1900 is safe from confiscation and should carry a big premium, or the Swiss 20 franc, or the French 20 franc, or, the Angel, or any of these old European coins that typically sell for just a little bit over their melt value. If I'm selling it to you, a lot of companies will tell a half truth and say, well, it's pre-33, it's safe from confiscation. No, it's really not. And so I don't know exactly what President Kennedy did or didn't. That beats news to me. But a lot of people think that the European coins made prior to 1933 would be exempt. They're not. Not even a little bit. In fact, there was even an agreement later on down the road between the industry, ICTA, the Industry Council for Tangible Assets, which is kind of an advocate for the precious metals industry, went to the IRS and said, look, there are coins that aren't pre-33 that truly are collectible. So in I guess you could say it's really not official, but it's what the industry uses, is that the number they used would be 15% premium on sellback to the melt value. And if it's not pre-33, it would be considered collectible in that case. And so those kind of coins, they will never carry that on sellback. I mean, typically you're getting a few dollars over spot or over melt on those older European coins. So if that's what he's talking about, it's a half truth.
You do bring up a good point, though, too. I think anytime someone's looking at making a purchase, if there's a pretty good sized premium on it, you want to be talking to someone that understands those coins in general, guys.
You take a box of gold eagles and a box of silver eagles, 500 coins to each box, you send them into PCGS, they will come back. 90% of them will come back MS69, 10% MS70, something like that. And so MS69 coins are complete and total waste of period of anything. If I'm short on gold eagles, I'll sell, and I have 50 of these MS69s in my warehouse, I will include them in place of the the new coins, and people usually, oh wow, you gave me MS69 first strike, great. Well, they're not worth anything more. The MS70s are sometimes worth more. I'll give you that. I mean, they are, but it's lipstick on a pig. I use the baseball cards again. Kids now, when they get baseball cards, they take perfect, put them in a plastic. Don't touch it. Don't use your fingers. Don't touch the corners. Back then, no one did. And so that's the point. So this here's the real truth of it, okay? You got to do a ton of business in precious metals to make any money. You have to. It's a low margin business, very low margin business. And, if you're not doing hundreds of millions of dollars, well, you better then create a story. And that story is then created through certified modern minted coins. I mean, lipstick on a pig, as far as I'm concerned. And as far as any dealer who would be honest with you is concerned. So you're far better off if you think you're buying numismatics to buy pre-33 than to waste your time, money, energy, and effort on buying modern minted certified stuff. Now, I do own quite a bit of the certified modern minted stuff. I know that sounds contradictory. Every year for the last, 24 years, I have bought, starting with one, my son, who's my oldest, I would buy him a proof Buffalo and Eagle certified proof 69, not mint state, but proof. Both the 1 ounce gold Eagle and 1 ounce gold Buffalo. And actually, the Buffalo wasn't even around until after he was born. So started more just Eagles back then. But then I started doing an Eagle and a Buffalo. And now I have 3 kids. My youngest is 17, almost 18. So I own, I buy 3 a year. So it adds up. But it's kind of the icing on the cake, so to speak. I don't buy it as the vanilla ice cream. Maybe it's the hot fudge. And I do it just my way of, thinking of my kids.
So for that, I say get prepared, guys. Make sure you've got your wealth insurance with your gold. Make sure you've got silver to barter with if we ever get to that point. Plus, silver is so undervalued. I would say it's the most undervalued commodity and asset that's out there today. So there's so much potential upside. But with both of these things, I can't tell you if it's tomorrow they're going to take off or if it's going to be in a couple of years from now. But
I'd also have a few $1,000 or more, depending upon your situation, in small bills, 5s, 10s, and 20s.
Yes.
You see a bank collapse, look at all the branches that are gone. And if the ATMs aren't working or whatever, you don't want to start walking around and trading immediately with gold and silver. Have some cash, have the ability to transact. They talk about how dollar bills are worth more than $1 in North Carolina after the hurricane up there and the flooding. It's not a bad idea to have some small bills and some junk silver and stuff in on hand, and hope you don't need to use it.
That's been great. Thank you, Andy. Everybody else hang tight. We'll do some giveaways here and a couple announcements. So thank you, Andy.
You got it, bro. Stay well.
Yep. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.